Greetings, fellow detectives. Wizard Kitten here, bringing you a new build in my series Building Nancy Drew in The Sims 4. It has been my goal for quite some time now to try and do a build of at least one location from every single Nancy Drew game, and it's been a while since I've tackled one of the few mysteries that I haven't done this for yet, where I haven't gotten to build anything from the game. But today is the day. I'm back giving it a go. Today I am working on the Technology of Tomorrow Today lab from Nancy Drew the Deadly Device. I haven't built anything for this game yet because there's only one location for this game. Nancy is only in this lab, and it is a rather large location. Because it is so large, this build is going to be split up into two parts. This is the first part in which I will be kind of building the entire first floor of the lab. And first we are working on Nico's office here. So Nico Jovic, the scientist who was murdered in the Deadly Device, this is his office. And it was really interesting trying to get a lot of the patterns and colors to match in the way that they look in the game itself, in the Deadly Device. It's kind of an eclectic office, and I did the best I could to kind of convey the shape of the floor, the kind of intricacy of the brick wall behind the desk, the green wallpaper with the wooden paneling on the bottom. Honestly, the green wallpaper with the wood paneling is probably the most accurate part. The tatami flooring came with the Sims 4 Snowy Escape, and it is Japanese inspired, which I don't think is exactly the look that was going on in Nico's office, but it ended up being the closest match that I had in The Sims 4. So what we have going on is something that frustrates me a little bit when I end up doing these recreation builds, is that we have a lot of just not matching wood swatches, a lot of uneven woods. We've got like the grayish brown wood on the brick wall. We have the warm wood with the green wallpaper, which does match the desk at least. And then we have the light wood with the black accents on the floor. And then the furniture pieces, the woods are all kind of different, which honestly is kind of realistic. I mean, most places that you go aren't going to have a full set of matching furniture where all of the wood tones are the same, but it's just something that I noticed. I have a critical eye for myself when I'm trying to do these recreations because I want them to look as close to the game as possible. That's my goal. But I also want them to look good in a Sims 4 build. So trying to balance both of those kind of goals with that as we bring Nico's office together. You are going to notice as we are going through this build that I use a lot of random items from the Get to Work expansion pack, which was actually the first expansion pack that the Sims 4 released way back in the day. I kind of went to town with the Get to Work items because they are honestly perfect for the Technology of Tomorrow Today lab. That expansion pack came with a lot of decorative items that look very industrial, look very mechanical, look like science items just in general. So I made very, very good use of that pack and a bunch of other packs too. I mean, it's kind of impossible not to use a ton of different packs when you're trying to do an exact replica of a Nancy Drew location. So yes, used a lot, but Get to Work is definitely the primary one. We're now working on kind of this main hallway central area. I definitely wanted to have this sculpture in the middle because it's really a feature of the game to have the big sculpture there, and honestly this one in The Sims 4 I really liked. I thought it actually looked very similar to the one in the game. And the layout I already have completely done. So I've done the layout for the bottom floor and the top floor as well. So in this part 1, we're just going to be doing the entirety of the bottom level, and then in part 2, we will do the entirety of the top level as well as the exterior and landscaping of the lab. So I hope you enjoy it. I definitely had fun doing this. It's a fun challenge. I think what made me most excited to do this build was the fact that I kind of realized that I would probably be able to use this build, use the Technology of Tomorrow Today lab for the Sims 4 save file that I've kind of been working on in my free time as just like a personal side project where I'm trying to redo the entire Sims 4 save in a kind of a realistic Sims style save file that has all of the things that I like to do with gameplay, lots of restaurants, lots of cafes, lots of parks, lots of realistic homes and realistic spaces. And this lab, I'm fairly certain you could replace the lab that came with the scientist career in Get to Work. I'm fairly certain that you could replace that with this one and it would still function just fine. I'm pretty sure it has everything that it needs to have in order to work as a location for that. So I absolutely love the idea of having one of my Sims do the scientist career and come to the lab of the Deadly Device game. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to try it out. I think it will be a lot of fun. I have always really enjoyed the interactive careers that came with the Sims 4 Get to Work. I do feel like it's kind of an underrated expansion pack in that sense, in that a lot of people place it as their bottom most expansion pack, or at least way towards the bottom, which honestly I understand. It was the first expansion pack released for The Sims 4, and so the amount of build buy items and create a sim items that we got with the pack were very limited compared to a lot of the more recent expansion packs that we're getting. But the gameplay of Get to Work, honestly, I think is incredible. Being able to have my sim go to work as a scientist, go to work as a doctor, go to work as a detective, and own their own retail store. I have used all 4 of those multiple times. There will just be playthroughs where I just want to go to work with my Sims and experience it. And I know it can get repetitive at times, but I'm someone who enjoys a little bit of repetition. I mean, that's the whole point of making a realistic kind of save file, is that I play The Sims in order to get a little bit of that kind of realism. It's almost like having control in real life is a lot harder than having control in the Sims universe, and it feels a lot more comfortable to kind of like play out an existence within the Sims. Very psychological, but I'm sure that has a lot to do with the fact that I struggle with anxiety, and so predictability and control are often very comforting to me. And so getting to have those interactive careers and do them, even if they are a little bit repetitive, I don't know, there's something just very healing about it for me. So let me know if you're the same. Let me know if that's part of the reason that you enjoy playing The Sims as well, if you do play The Sims. We are now moving on to probably my favorite location on this level, and that is the lounge room on the bottom, almost like the staff lounge, and then a place for visiting scientists who also would go to visit the Technology of Tomorrow Today lab. That is such a mouthful to say, by the way. I am just waiting to flub up the words on the name of this lab. It is so lengthy. I'm assuming they did that on purpose because it's kind of funny. But regardless, working on the kind of finessing the floor plan a little bit for the space where visiting scientists would stay and where Nancy stays as she's working on the case, and then getting the coloring right, getting the layout of everything perfect. It was a lot of fun. One of the things I love about the Deadly Device most is, and a lot of you pointed this out during the last live stream I did of this game, is that the coloring is just so on point. So like every space in the lab has these really beautiful orange and blue tones that just kind of are omnipresent throughout the entire game. And it comes through most strongly in this lounge area, which actually has a really beautiful skylight as well, with hanging plants from the ceiling, which I never really noticed before. It's fun kind of doing these recreations because then you start to notice little things in the environments that you didn't even see before that add so much to the environments. So that's kind of what I'm working on here, is trying to find some plants and some skylights to recreate that on this lounge level. I'm going to need to figure out how to do it on the second level because the skylights are right in the middle of the office space where Mason and Ellie are supposed to be working. So got to figure out that floor plan a little bit more, got to finesse that a little bit. But I had a lot of fun putting in the ceiling plants. It's also a little bit confusing because a large majority of the lab seems like it is completely underground, and then there are other parts of the lab that seem like they are not entirely underground. There are some spaces that seem like they have windows, and then there are a lot of spaces that seem like they don't. So obviously in real life, that explanation would be that the lab is built on a bit of a slope, and so parts of the basement might be fully submerged and other parts would not be. However, that's not something that's easily accomplished in The Sims, particularly not with a basement level. So I just decided to make the basement level a true basement level. There's no windows, it's not exposed to the upper level at all. It's just a giant basement. So there we have it. Working on the little bedroom space. I really enjoyed making this little room because I feel like I was able to get it very, very close to what it looks like in game. I made sure to put a little backpack there to kind of symbolize Nancy staying in this little room. I also used this really beautiful bronze metal siding for the room. When I looked at it in the screenshots of the game, it did seem like it was wood paneling. However, I really loved the industrial look of the bronze metal wall that came with Eco Lifestyle. I thought it captured the color better, and since the color was really the part that I wanted to emphasize the most, I decided to just really go with it. I was really happy with how that bronze metal looked. This is the only bathroom that will be in the entire build, and it kind of seems like it's the only bathroom, like, actually as well. When you kind of look around the floor plan of the building itself, it doesn't seem like there are really any other bathrooms. So this is the one that Nancy goes in, and she says a bunch of funny little quotes when she's in there, or she'll reference previous games or upcoming games. It's really fun. I really enjoy that little detail in the games where Nancy would do that. And now working on this little kitchenette here in the corner. Oh, and I was adjusting the industrial vents that we got with the industrial loft kit. Is that what it's called? The industrial loft kit, the most recent kit that came out that was with the entirely industrial style. I did make sure to utilize that as much as possible in this build because, I mean, a science lab, especially this particular lab and the way it is presented in game, definitely has a lot of industrial vibes. So I wanted to make use of that pack where possible. I also wanted to make the kitchen as functional as possible. There's not a stove, but because there's a microwave, I mean, your Sims can get away with making a lot of very fast meals. I definitely wanted to include a coffee pot. There's no way you can tell me that the scientists who work here don't drink a ton of coffee. I think every single one of them drinks coffee, but in like very different ways, like for very different reasons. Like I think Ryan probably drinks coffee just because it helps her be even more hyper, and Ryan is just like a really excitable, fun character, and so she drinks it because she loves how it makes her feel even more energized than she already is. I feel like Ellie drinks it for like the emotional connection to coffee, like just sipping a warm coffee in the morning helps her feel like more calm and more at peace. And then I feel like Mason just drinks coffee because it's just part of his routine, like, and it's defined as part of people's morning routines. So he just always thinks, okay, like coffee in the morning, that's one of the steps of his morning routine. I can imagine that Mason probably has a very detailed morning routine that he sticks to flawlessly. I have a hard time imagining that that's not the case for him. And so now I'm filling in this room with a bunch of furniture. Oh, I forgot Gray. Gray definitely drinks coffee. And Gray definitely drinks coffee just because, I mean, he needs it to stay awake, I would imagine. He's an older guy. It's probably just become a habit for him at this point, and he doesn't even question it. He just drinks the coffee. Let me know all of your thoughts on coffee. I'm a big coffee fan. I love tea too, but I enjoy the taste of coffee better. And yeah, it just feels more soothing. And it's, you know, it's that pumpkin coffee time, so your girl is happy. I am very pleased with this situation. If the weather was cooler, I'd be even more happy, but c'est la vie, here we are. I also got to make use of this fantastic sectional that came with the Sims 4 Dream Home Decorator. I absolutely love that we have sectionals available now. It definitely made me excited to work on this lounge, especially because it came in pretty much the perfect color as well. It's not technically a sectional in the lounge when you're looking at screenshots of the game or moving around within a walkthrough in the game, which is what I do when I'm working on these builds. You'll see me pause every once in a while, and that's me pausing my previous walkthrough of the Deadly Device, trying to get different angles of the room. But when you do see angles of the room, the couch isn't actually like a full sectional. It's a couple of giant comfy armchairs, but we don't have any giant comfy armchairs in The Sims 4. It would be kind of fun if we did. Like, I'm talking giant cozy beanbags. We just don't have those. They're not an option. So I just decided to go full sectional and be perfectly happy with it. And so now we are working on Gray's room. This is the control room, the security office, whatever you'd like to call it. And this is where I really start to make a lot of use of the get to work items. Very frequently you will see me go to the filter tool and just find all of the items from get to work. Quite a few base game items as well. A lot that I have like never seen or used before, like that stocks, the electronic stocks bar, whatever you want to call it. I didn't know that existed in game. I'm sure it's unlocked through the business career or something like that. The tactical map is probably through the secret agent career, which is just kind of funny in general to me. But I think it looked really nice in the surveillance room, in this little security room. I think it worked out quite nicely. So just a bunch of tech things everywhere. I gave Gray as many monitors as I could fit. I put a couple of more interactive electronics equipment in here. The room ended up feeling kind of large compared to some of the other spaces, and that's part of it. Part of it is just like a scaling issue when you're trying to translate from Nancy Drew into The Sims 4. I run into this issue when I'm doing these recreations a lot, where there are spaces in the rooms where, because it's a point and click game, Nancy just needs room to stand. She needs room to navigate, and without that room, we wouldn't be able to see kind of a full 360 of the space itself. However, when you try to translate that into The Sims 4, there ends up being a big, giant empty space, and you don't really have anything that you can use to fill it. So that's why a lot of the time I'll add rugs in some of my builds where rugs do not exist, where rugs are not supposed to necessarily be. In this one, I made use of the platform tool, which actually is in the game. A lot of the spaces are up on platforms. I didn't do it quite as often as I maybe could have, and that's because the platform tool is still really finicky to use, and it almost didn't feel worth it necessarily. It didn't feel like it would add anything to the build. So I did it in Gray's office because I felt like it kind of helped to divide the space up a little bit, but I haven't really done it anywhere else. For example, I could have done it leading up to Nico's office, but I did not. That was a choice I made. Another choice I made was to really just kind of make the lab my own. I didn't try to match any of the mechanical things that we see in the lab specifically. I just tried to fill it in with as many get-to-work science items as possible, as many of the base game science items as possible. I tried to make it feel filled in. I tried to make it feel cluttered, but I also needed it to be fairly functional, and I didn't want it to look ridiculously cluttered. So what I did is just kind of used the space in general. As in, I kind of tried to imagine where Nancy goes in the room and things that she interacts with in the room, and I would put a lot of the get-to-work decorative items there. I also made sure to include this giant microscope. It sits in the middle of the room, and it may or may not be functional there. I might need to tweak that around a little bit, but regardless, the way it looks right now kind of matches when Nancy walks into the lab and she sees in the middle this kind of big central mechanical area with just a ton of things that you can interact with, and that's really, again, what I tried to do. I just tried to make it seem like a really busy interactive area while also making the space smaller and more functional, more usable for The Sims. And I think it turned out well. I had actually a really good time making this build. It was kind of a fun challenge, and yet at the same time it also came together fairly easily because I just kind of gave myself permission to go with the vibe, like the general idea of the game, without always trying to match certain areas of it. Like I did my best in places where it was possible, but like in the lab it wouldn't have been possible. So I just went for it. One of the rooms that I do think that actually was able to match pretty carefully was the photolithography lab, which is what we are working on now. I was able to find this Get to Work wallpaper. Surprise, surprise. Pretty much everything in this build is Get to Work. Anyway, the Get to Work wallpaper that matches very similarly to the wallpaper used in the game. I was also able to use these countertops and make a little work area that felt very similar to the work area that Nancy utilizes within the game itself. So that was a lot of fun. I was really happy with how this little space turned out. Plus, it's another functional space, too. I mean, having computers around, if I were to use this, or if you were to use this as a lab for your scientist sims, I think it's got plenty of computers. We have the like the chemistry workstations. I don't necessarily know what they're called, but there's one in this room, and then there's one in the main lab as well, and those are used very frequently for the scientist career. The microscope is used very frequently. I also included a robotics station from The Sims 4 Discover University, so it just felt like it made sense. It was another mechanical item that I figured would work well. And I definitely wanted to include the vents from the industrial loft kit in the photolithography lab, since that's an interactive item for Nancy, since she does have to crawl out of the vents at some point during the game. So I definitely wanted to make sure there were actual vents within that space. The last build I did for the channel were industrial loft apartments for Dagny Silva and Alex Lintrong from I was going to say The Sims 4 Sea of Darkness, but that's not accurate. From Nancy Drew Sea of Darkness, I made some loft-style apartments for them when the industrial loft kit came out, and I belatedly realized that I didn't utilize the vents at all, like these awesome vents. So I'm glad that I decided to do this build next so that I could give those vents their moment, so that I could use those vents, because I just love them. I think they're really cool. I'm really glad that we finally have something like that in game. I think it's a very nice architectural detail. So this is the last space that we are going to be doing for the basement level. It does technically extend up into the second level as well, but it is all just one room. And this is the Tesla coil room and the little office, the control room office up top. And the control room, I love how the control room turned out. It feels extremely realistic to me. It actually looks very similar to how it looks in game. And I do enjoy how the Tesla coil lab came together. It is not nearly as detailed or intricate as the environments in the Deadly device, which honestly is one of my favorite things about the Deadly device. I think the environments are absolutely spectacular. It's one of my favorite modern games as a whole. Just in general, I really enjoy the Deadly device. I think it's really good. But the environments in particular, I think, are really, really well done. So I wanted to do them justice, and getting this space to look as similar to the Tesla coil lab as possible was important to me, and the way I kind of made that work and also made it functional was to put the invention station in here, and then to fill up the walls and the extra space with a bunch of the random get to work items. The invention station is required for the scientist career. You need it in order to craft inventions, and we don't have anything that looks like Tesla coil like that is also functional. There is, actually that's sort of a lie, there is a kid's project that is a little mini Tesla coil, and it's really cute, and I probably could have found that and sized it up, but it wouldn't have been functional in the sense that I wanted this to be able to function as a lab for the scientist career, and I therefore needed a space for that invention station, and it was fitting perfectly right in that little corner there, so I was very pleased with that. I thought it was a reasonable compromise. Even though the Tesla coil is kind of, you know, the selling point of the Deadly device. It is kind of the point, but on the second level, I'll have to place a little mini Tesla coil as an homage to the game itself. I'm curious to hear what are all of your thoughts on the Deadly Device as a game. I, like I mentioned, really enjoy it. It's one of my favorite modern Nancy Drew mysteries, and I think it's because it harkens back to the classic era for me in such a strong way. Mostly because we have this one big environment to explore, just like we did in a lot of the earlier Nancy Drew games. Like if you think back to Message in a Haunted Mansion and Treasure in the Royal Tower, the final scene, all of those are one location games, and that's what I really love about the Deadly Device. But we are all ready to the screenshots. I didn't even notice. Thank you so much for watching, fellow detectives. I do hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more Nancy Drew and Sims 4 content. Please feel free to also check out my second channel, Perfectionists Anonymous, linked in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching, fellow detectives. I will see you soon.